Well, good evening. Welcome to our 26th annual Declamation contest. This was a tradition that the late Marvin Goldberg revived in 1991. There have been now many years of Stony Brook students declaiming. This is something that Stony Brook boys did back in the 1940s and 1950s. I'm pleased that this version of Stony Brook is reviving and celebrating this experience. So, to begin with, I'd like to invite our head of school, Joshua Crane, to come and welcome us, lead us in invocation.
Well, welcome to you all. So glad that you're here for this special evening. The proverb says that all hard work turns a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. So tonight is not about mere talk. It's the culmination of lots of hard work by all of our students and the ones behind the screen here in particular. So we're excited to hear from them. We've been hearing from them on the pathways, in the dining hall, in the dorm rooms, in the car as they've been practicing so faithfully for this contest tonight. So what I'd like to do is pray for them and pray for our time here together. So would you join me in prayer? Father, thanks for your goodness to us. Thank you for these students and for the talents that you've given them. Would they be encouraged tonight? Would you comfort them? And would they feel your strength? I pray, Father, for a great night here together tonight as we celebrate them, their hard work. Lord, give the judges wisdom. In your name we pray. Amen. May the best declaimers win.
Well, we couldn't have a contest in many ways without a panel of judges to help us with the event, and we have a fine panel that have come to Stony Brook, a few very locally, some from as far away as Virginia, to be here. So Stony Brook students, you know how important, right, this event is. We've got almost it's not really, it's multi-state travel going on. So I want to begin by introducing Chris Cunningham. I'm pleased to have Chris here. Miss Cunningham was raised in Carle Place, New York, on Long Island, graduated from Carle Place High School, and then the University of Delaware, where she was a major in international relations. While in high school, Miss Cunningham performed in school theatricals, playing leading roles in several musicals, including Where's Charlie and Pajama Game. She pursued acting in California, eventually launched a career in public relations and event planning. 5 years ago, she started her own event planning company, Sapphire Events, while her daughters, Allie, class of 2014, and Amanda, class of 2011, attended Stony Brook. Miss Cunningham was a tireless and enthusiastic parent, volunteer, and leader. I myself very much appreciated all she did for our theater program. So it is great to have you with us tonight. Thank you for being with us. And now I'm very pleased to welcome an alum, Sarah Kratz, back to Stony Brook. After entering Stony Brook as an 8th grader, as a day student, Ms. Kratz spent her last 2 years as a boarder, graduating in 2007. Ms. Kratz remembers loving Declamation. She was a 4-time finalist, and as she says, finally won her senior year with Ms. Lindsay's help. She completed undergraduate studies at Smith College and then attended Marymount University in Virginia, earning a master's in education. Ms. Kratz currently teaches 4th grade at St. John Academy in McLean, Virginia. Naturally, she works to instill public speaking and memorization values into her students, also assists with the middle school musicals at her institution. So thank you, Ms. Kratz, for joining us, for coming all the way from Virginia and assisting in the judging process. Thank you. We also have with us David Metz, class of 1996. I'm very happy to have you, David, here on campus. Mr. Metz grew up in Port Jefferson, began attending the Stony Brook School in 8th grade, graduating in 1996. Like every Stony Brook at Stony Brook, he declaimed. You don't at least recall being a finalist, but did do the assignment. Mr. Metz played lacrosse while at Stony Brook and was fortunate to attend Drexel University on athletic scholarship, playing lacrosse there and also majoring in history. He entered the financial world of New York City, working for AMR Capital, and today Mr. Metz is running his startup company, Fleetwit, which is an online gaming site. He's married to Dr. Katie Metz, who is also with us tonight, so thank you both for joining us. So please join me in also welcoming David Mao, class of 2006. Mr. Mao attended Stony Brook as an 8th grade boarder from Colorado. At the Brook, he learns to sail and speak in front of an audience. He does remember choking, surely not. Well, in my class, surely not. No, in one of his early declamations, but he lived to tell a tale. He's apparently told this a few times, right? And eventually won the declamation contest senior year, in humor category. After Stony Brook, Mr. Mao majored in international relations at Tufts and then attended law school at Fordham. Mr. Mao currently lives in Brooklyn and represents New York City as an assistant corporation counsel in the New York City Law Department. So he's enjoying this experience, opportunities that his job in the public sector brings. So thank you for serving the public that way with your law training. So we're happy to have you here tonight as a declamation judge, Mr. Mao. And finally, please welcome Andrew Palan to our campus tonight. Mr. Palan grew up just down the road in Selden. He attended Newfield High School and then C.W. Post in Greenvale, part of the Long Island University system. He received his Bachelor of Science in Management and is a New York State licensed optician. Comes from a family of opticians. Mr. Palan not only owns and runs Vision World in Stony Brook, but also embraced teaching at Suffolk Community College as a professor of ophthalmic dispensing. Beyond vision needs, Mr. Palan also serves his community as a president of the Three Village Chamber, and also as president of North Shore Jewish Center. So thank you, Mr. Palan, for being with us this evening. So there will be 3 categories of declamation tonight: oration, humor, and drama. One winner will be selected from each category. This winner will receive a cash prize of $100. Between each category, there will be a musical interlude. And I would also like to mention that for many years, all of our performers at the contest, speakers, as well as our musicians, have been generously rewarded with a gift certificate from the Good Steer restaurant, which is donated by the owner of the Good Steer, Mr. Bob McCarroll, an alum and also a Stony Brook parent. I believe Mr. and Mrs. McCarroll are here, so thank you, McCarroll family, for your support. So let's begin. Go ahead, tech room. I think we can bring down the house lights. So tonight's first category is oration. So the author J.K. Rowling is certainly known to most of us for her Harry Potter series. She has coaxed thousands and thousands of youngsters, including my own children, in becoming avid readers. She's invented a very rich, imaginative world. She is one of the most successful and wealthy authors in history, but Rowling has not always known success. In 2008, Rowling gave an address at Harvard, an address she called "The Fringe Benefits of Failure." Sophomore Miranda Harrigan will be our first declaimer this evening with Rowling's address. Please welcome Miranda Harrigan.
On this wonderful day, when we are gathered here to celebrate your academic success, I have decided to talk to you about the benefits of failure. This may seem a quixotic or paradoxical choice, but please, bear with me. Looking back at the 21-year-old that I was at graduation is a slightly uncomfortable experience for the 42-year-old that she has become. Half my lifetime ago, I was striking an uneasy balance between the ambition I had for myself and what those closest to me expected of me. I was convinced that the only thing I wanted to do, ever, was to write novels. However, my parents, both of whom came from impoverished backgrounds and neither of whom had been to college, took the view that my overactive imagination was an amusing personal quirk that would never pay a mortgage or secure a pension. I know that the irony strikes with the force of a cartoon anvil now. So they hoped that I would take a vocational degree. I wanted to study English literature. A compromise was reached that in retrospect satisfied nobody, and I went out to study modern languages. Hardly had my parents' car rounded the corridor at the end of the road, then I ditched German and scuttled off down the classics corridor. I would like to make it clear, in parentheses, that I do not blame my parents for their point of view. There is an expiry date on blaming your parents for steering you in the wrong direction. The moment you are old enough to take the wheel, responsibility lies with you. What is more, I cannot criticize my parents for hoping that I would never experience poverty. They themselves had been poor, and I have since been poor, and I quite agree with them that it is not an ennobling experience. Poverty entails fear and stress and sometimes depression. It is 1,000 petty humiliations and hardships. Climbing out of poverty by your own efforts, that is indeed something on which to pride yourself. But poverty itself is romanticized only by fools. What I feared most for myself at your age was not poverty, but failure. At your age, in spite of a distinct lack of motivation at university, where I had spent far too long in the coffee bar writing stories and far too little time at lectures, I had a knack for passing examinations, and that, for years, had been the measure of success in my life and that of my peers. I am not dull enough to suppose that because you are young, gifted, and well-educated, you have never known hardship or heartbreak. Talent and intelligence never yet inoculated anyone against the caprice of the fates, and I do not for a moment suppose that everyone here has enjoyed an existence of unruffled privilege and contentment. However, the fact that you are graduating from Harvard suggests that you are not well acquainted with failure. You might be driven by a fear of failure, quite as much as a desire for success. Indeed, your conception of failure might not be too far off from the average person's idea of success. So high have you already flown. Ultimately, we all have to decide for ourselves what constitutes failure, but the world is quite eager to give you a set of criteria if you are willing to let it. So, I think it fair to say that a mere 7 years after my graduation day, I had failed on an epic scale. An exceptionally short-lived marriage had imploded, and I was jobless, a lone parent, and as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. The fears that my parents had had for me, and that I had had for myself, had both come to pass, and by every usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew. Now, I am not going to stand here and tell you that failure is fun. That period in my life was a dark one, and I had no idea then that there would be what the press has since represented as a kind of fairy tale resolution. I had no idea then how far the tunnel extended, and for a long time, any light at the end of it was a mere hope rather than a reality. So then why do I talk about the benefits of failure? Simply because failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and I began to direct all my energy into finishing the only work that truly mattered to me. Had I really succeeded at anything else, I might never have found the determination to succeed in the one arena in which I believed I truly belonged. I was set free because my greatest fear had been realized, and I was still alive, and I still had a daughter whom I adored, and I had an old typewriter and a big idea. And so, rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. You might never fail on the scale that I did, but some failure in life is inevitable. It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously you might as well never have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. Failure gave me a sense of inner security that I had never attained by passing examinations. Failure taught me things about myself that I could have learned no other way. I discovered that I had a strong will and more discipline than I had suspected, and I found that I had friends whose value was truly above the price of rubies. The knowledge that you have emerged wiser and stronger from setbacks means that you are, ever after, confident in your ability to survive. You will never truly know yourself or the strengths of your relationships until both have been tested by adversity. Such knowledge is a gift, for all that it is painfully won, and it has been worth more to me than any qualification I have ever earned. I wish you all very good lives. Thank you very much.
Junior Rochelle Vassal will now interpret the address given by Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie. In 1963, Selassie addressed the United Nations, challenging his listeners to overcome racism and the legacy of colonial exploitation. Please welcome Rochelle Vassal.
On the question of racial discrimination, the Addis Ababa Summit Conference taught, to those who will learn this further lesson, that until the philosophy, which holds one race superior and another inferior, is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, that until there are no longer first-class and second-class citizens of any nation, that until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, that until the basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all without regard to race, until that day, the dream of lasting peace, world citizenship, and the rule of international morality will remain but fleeting illusions, to be pursued but never attained. And until bigotry, prejudice, malicious and inhumane self-interest have been replaced by tolerance, understanding, and goodwill, until all Africans stand and speak as free beings, equal in the eyes of all men as they are in the eyes of heaven. Until that day, the African continent will not know peace. We Africans will fight, if necessary, and we know that we shall win, as we are confident in the victory of good over evil. The basis of racial discrimination and colonialism has been economic, and it is with economic weapons that these evils have been and can be overcome. In pursuance of resolutions adopted at the Addis Ababa Summit Conference, African states have undertaken certain measures in the economic field, which, if adopted by every member state of the United Nations, would soon reduce inflexibility to reason. I ask today for adherence to these measures by every nation represented here, which is truly devoted to the principles enunciated in the Charter. We must act while we can, while the occasion exists to exert those legitimate pressures available to us, lest time run out and resort be had to less happy means. The great nations of the world would do well to remember that in the modern age, even their own fates are not wholly in their hands. Peace demands the united efforts of us all. Who can foresee what spark might ignite the fuse? The stake of each one of us is identical: life or death. We all wish to live. We all seek a world in which men are freed from the burdens of ignorance, poverty, hunger, and disease. And we shall all be hard-pressed to escape the deadly rain of nuclear fallout should catastrophe overtake us. The problems which confront us today are equally unprecedented. They have no counterparts in human experience. Men search the pages of history for solutions, for precedents, but there are none. This then is the ultimate challenge. Where are we to look for our survival, for the answers to the questions which have never before been posed? We must look first to the Almighty God, who has raised man above the animals and endowed him with intelligence and reason. We must put our faith in him, that he will not desert us or permit us to destroy humanity, which he created in his image. And we must look into ourselves, into the depths of our souls. We must become something we have never been, and for which our education, experience, and environment have ill-prepared us. We must become bigger than we have been, more courageous, greater in spirit, larger in outlook. We must become members of a new race, overcoming petty prejudice, owing our ultimate allegiance not to nations, but to our fellow men within the human community.
In 1976, Margaret Thatcher was elected leader of the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom. A few years later, Thatcher became the first woman to serve as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Thatcher gained prominence with her outspoken opposition to the Soviet Union and to socialism, exemplified in the speech that Senior Elise Mitchell will deliver for us, Britain Awake. This speech is typical of the tough rhetoric which won Thatcher the nickname the Iron Lady. Please welcome Senior Elise Mitchell.
The first duty of any government is to safeguard its people against external aggression, to guarantee the survival of our way of life. The question we must now ask ourselves is whether our present government is fulfilling that duty. They are dismantling our defenses at a moment when the strategic threat against Britain and her allies from an expansionist power is graver than at any moment since the end of the last war. Military men are always telling us that the strategic balance is tilting against NATO and the West, but the socialists never listen. They don't seem to realize that the submarines and missiles that the Soviets are building could be destined to be used against us. Perhaps some people in the Labor Party think we are on the same side as the Soviets, but just let's look at what the Soviet Union is doing. She's ruled by a dictatorship of patient, far-sighted, determined men who are rapidly making their nation into the foremost naval and military power in the world. They are not doing this solely for the sake of self-defense. A huge, largely landlocked country like the Soviet Union does not need to build the world's most powerful navy in order to guard its own frontiers. No. The Soviet Union is bent on world dominance, and they are rapidly acquiring the means to become the most powerful imperial nation the world has seen. The men of the Soviet Politburo don't have to worry about the ebb and flow of public opinion. They put guns before butter, while we put just about everything before guns. They know that they are a superpower in one sense, the military sense. They are a failure in human and economic terms, but let us make no mistake. The Soviet Union calculates that their military strength will more than make up for their economic and social weakness. They are determined to use it in order to get what they want from us. Some military experts believe that the Soviet Union has already achieved strategic superiority over America. Over the past 10 years, the Soviets have quadrupled the force of their nuclear submarines. They are now building one nuclear submarine a month. They are searching for new naval-based facilities all over the world, while we are giving up our few remaining bases. The Soviet Navy is not designed for self-defense. We do not have to imagine an all-out nuclear war or even a conventional war in order to see how it could be used for political purposes. I would be the first to welcome any evidence that the Soviets are willing to enter into a genuine detente, but I'm afraid the evidence points the other way. Has detente induced the Russians to cut back on their defense program? Has it dissuaded them from brazen intervention in Angola? We know the answers.
We are devoted, as we always have been, to the maintenance of peace. We will welcome any initiative from the Soviet Union that would contribute to that goal. But we must also heed the warnings of those who remind us that we have been fighting a kind of third world war over the entire period since 1945, and we have been steadily losing ground. We have seen Vietnam and all of Indochina swallowed up by communist aggression. We have seen the communists make an open grab for power in Portugal, our oldest ally, and now the Soviet Union and its satellites are pouring money, arms, and frontline troops into Angola in the hopes of dragging it into the communist bloc. The advance of communist power threatens our whole way of life. That advance is not irreversible, providing we take the necessary measures now. But the longer we go on running down our means of survival, the harder it will be to catch up. Under the last defense review, the government said it would cut defense spending over the next 9 years. It now seems that we will see further cuts. If we see further cuts, perhaps the defense secretary should change his name, for the sake of accuracy, to the Secretary for Insecurity. On defense, we are now spending less per head on the population than any of our other major allies. Even neutral Sweden spends more than we do. Let us be clear about one thing. This is not a moment when anyone with the interests of this country at heart should be talking about cutting our defenses. It is a time when we urgently need to strengthen our defenses. If we cannot understand why the Soviet Union is rapidly becoming the greatest naval and military power the world has ever seen, if we cannot take a lesson from what they tried to do in Portugal and are now trying to do in Angola, then we are destined, in their words, to end up on the scrap heap of history. In the world beyond Europe, America is still the prime champion of freedom. But we are all aware of how the bitter experiences in Vietnam shifted the public mood in America. We are also aware of the circumstances that inhibit action by an American president in an election year. So it is more vital than ever that each and every one of us within NATO contribute his proper share to the defense of freedom. Britain, with her worldwide experience in defense and diplomacy, has a special role to play. We're not harking back some nostalgic illusion about Britain's role to play in the past. We're saying Britain has a role to play now, a part to play for the future. Part of Britain's world role should be to provide, through its spokesman, a reasoned and vigorous defense of the Western concept of rights and liberties, the kind that America's ambassador to the UN has provided in his powerfully argued speeches. But our role extends beyond that. We have abundant experience and expertise in the art of diplomacy in its broadest sense. It should be used within Europe to achieve effective foreign policy initiatives, but new problems are looming up. It is clear that internal violence, and above all, political terrorism, will continue to pose a major challenge to all Western societies. Caught up in the problems and hardships that socialism has brought to Britain, we are sometimes in danger of failing to see the vast transformations taking place in this world that dwarf our own problems, great though they are. We must wake up to those developments. Soviet military power will not go away simply because we refuse to look at it. The Conservative Party has the vital task of shaking the British public out of a long sleep. Sedatives have been prescribed by people in and out of government, telling us that there's no external threat to Britain, that all is sweetness and light in Moscow, and that a squadron of fighter planes or a company of Marine commandos is less important than some new subsidy. The Conservative Party must now sound the warning. There are moments in our history when we must make a fundamental choice. This is one such moment, a moment when our choice will determine the life or death of our kind of society and the future of our children. Let us ensure we give our children cause to rejoice that we did not forsake their freedom.
Our last oration will be presented by Senior Dan Scott, who will be declaiming a piece adapted from the final column of famed sports writer Rick Riley. In it, Riley reflects on his career as a sports writer and on the lessons he has learned from the world of sports. Please welcome Dan Scott.
I'm the son of a drunk, a man who was much too concerned with where his next whiskey was coming from than where I was going. He didn't discipline me, didn't advise me, didn't father me. Hell, most of the time he didn't even know where I was. And my trembling mother was much too terrified of him and his sloppy temper slamming home to worry about what I was doing. So when I got a regular byline in the town paper before my 21st birthday, I was as wild and unruly as a mop of hair on my head. I had a voice and a license to use it, but not one lesson in how. I hurt people just to make a name for myself, just because I could. My first beat came with the Colorado women's basketball team, and I came out slashing. Until one day, a retired coach named Sox Walsett came up to me. His hair was white, with matching caterpillar eyebrows, and he wore a cardigan. He put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, you're not going to get very far writing articles like the one you did today. These people shouldn't have to read the cheap shots you're taking at them. You can do better than this." I looked right back at him, stuck out my bottom lip, and began to cry. I was so starved for a father that this man I hardly knew was suddenly thrown into the job. I'm sure he was as confused about what was happening as I was, but he took me to his chest and he hugged me. As I sit here and write my last column as a sports writer, I see now how that moment changed my life. Until then, I never thought about what it was to be a good man. I had no clue, never considered it. But when I looked around, I saw that sports was full of men and women like that, disciplined, molded, and dedicated to their teammates as much as they were to themselves. I see now how I was raised by sports, how it became my second family, and how I learned at his feet every day. I noticed how Michael Jordan never appeared before us until his tie was tied, $3,000 suit buttoned, and silk pocket squared just so. From him, I learned professionalism. I watched save after save fall on John Elway's head. Super Bowl losses, divorce, the loss of his twin sister and beloved dad. And yet he refused to allow himself an ounce of self-pity. From him, I learned grit. I'd see how Jim Murray would greet each of the dozen people who just wanted to shake the great sports writer's hand, even though he could hardly see his chair, much less their hands. From him, I learned humility. I wrote about the teammates of high school cross-country runner Ben Coleman, who would finish their 3-mile races, then double back out onto the course to run with Ben as limping cerebral palsy gait. From them, I learned love. I discovered the athletes of Middlebury College, who would pick up a severely handicapped fan named Butch, load him into a car, and take him to every game, where they provide a hot dog, a Coke, and a buddy. From them, I learned service. Never let anyone tell you sports doesn't matter. Never let them tell you it's about the wins, the losses, and the stats. Sports is so much more than that. It's your grandfather in you, and how a Sunday Bears game bonds you like superglue. It's what you ask of yourself, to break 4 hours in the marathon. It's the way your softball buddies can still laugh about you hitting the ump instead of the cutoff man 30 years later. Eventually, my father sobered up, and I grew up. I came to understand the chance he'd given up, and the one I'd been given. Sox Walsett died 10 years ago, but I hope he saw. I hope I did better. So why leave the best job in the world after 36 years? To see what else is out there. Learn new lessons from new teachers. To live in Italy, make amends to my piano, never have to worry about groin pulls again. True, I'm only 56, but I always did prefer riding short. To borrow from Peyton Manning, it's been my privilege to be your sports writer. If I'd have known so many people would reach out and say so many kind things, I'd have quit years ago. To be told by a young journalist that you were the reason she got into the business. To be told by a grieving son that you made his dying mother laugh. To be told by a reader that a column you wrote changed the direction of his life, it swells the heart. You've been better to me than I deserve. No writer in history is more flawed than me. But it was never for lack of trying. It was always in my attempt to get to the truth, or to make it fun, or to make it add up to something meaningful to you. Life circles are funny, aren't they? This Sunday, the US Open golf tournament wraps up, but for once, I won't be there. Instead, for the first time in my life, I'll be at home with my kids on Father's Day.
It is now time for our first musical interlude. So please welcome Stephen O, who will be performing a piece entitled A Whole New World. Stephen O. So our second category this evening is humor. These students don't take themselves too seriously, and I hope you do not either. So senior Chelsea Coubre-Fort will begin our humor category with a piece by Mindy Kaling. Writer, actor, comedian, Kaling is known for her work on the TV show The Office. 2012, Kaling published a book which included in it, among other things, strict instructions for her funeral. Please welcome Chelsea.
Whoever is closest to me when I die, here are the instructions for my funeral. You might think this is presumptuous, but consider it a favor to you, because at the time of my death, You'll be so distracted with grief that your ability to plan will be compromised. And I don't want my funeral to be a thrown-together disaster. Dress code, chic, devastated. None of my exes are allowed to attend. Distracting, weird. Okay, the only way I would even consider an ex attending is if he were completely, horrifically devastated. Like when he heard I died, it made him take a good hard look at his life and his choices. And he turned Buddhist or something. No current wives or girlfriends of my exes are allowed to attend. This part is really, for real, non-negotiable. They'll just use the opportunity to look all hot in black. No one can use my funeral as the inciting incident for their own romantic comedy. My a cappella group from college will try to perform. I forgive them for trying, but this is not allowed to happen. I don't just mean the group currently singing at my college. No assembly of past members or anything is allowed to sing. You must be vigilant about this. With the blink of an eye, I can see a group of tearful women starting a caterwauling rendition of Sarah McLachlan's I Will Remember You. Be really mindful of this. They will find loopholes. No one may use the occasion to debut original music they wrote. I hate original music. There should be food at my funeral. I hate getting invited to something and there's no food. Something tasteful and light, no pasta. I'm serious. I will climb out of my coffin if anyone brings a baked ziti. Actually, no hot food at all. Small, savory finger sandwiches, scones, coffee, basically an English tea, but I don't want anything stacked on a tiered platter. That's pretentious. People can text, but no phone calls. That's rude. And when I say you can text, I mean hardcore furtive texting, like using one hand and with your BlackBerry hidden in your purse. If people speak, they need to follow guidelines, or this will become a free-for-all. I have a lot of comedy writer friends. Don't let them turn this into a roast for me. I want no moments of mirth at all with this thing. No edgily remembering something stupid I did to show that we can all have a big cathartic laugh. No irony at all. I mean it. I spent my entire professional career dealing in irony. I want an almost cringe-inducingly earnest ceremony. Please, no religious stuff. I kind of insist no one mention God or anything at my funeral. I'm not making some big atheist statement, but I want this to be solemn because, people are so upset I'm dead, and I don't want to share the spotlight with God. No candles. I hate candles. This isn't a sex scene from Grey's Anatomy. If Steve Carell doesn't show up, I want my children and my children's children to make a note of it. There should be a gift bag for people when they leave. Inside of it should include 1, a photo of me when I was my most beautiful, put through an old-timey photo process and displayed in a heart-shaped pewter frame. It should look like the kind of photo a soldier carried around with him during the Civil War. 2, an energy bar or trendy body spray from whichever company is sponsoring the funeral. 3, a copy of a drawing I did when I was little of what I wanted to be when I grew up, which was an astronaut. Under the drawing should be written in cursive, she finally found her wings, or, and we have liftoff. And 4, a letter from the president talking about my impact on the creative community. If the president happens to be a woman that year, she can slant things that way, how I inspired her to believe in her own dreams and stuff. Do all of this, and you will know that I will rest in eternal peace, if that's important to you.
Well, from going from a character who is a little self-absorbed about a funeral to another kind of self-absorption, Junior Shane Fitzpatrick will now present a character who is contemplating the meaning of his experiences as someone who's trying to get a date or has been going out on dates. As some of us can attest, dating is not always easy. Shane Fitzpatrick will share with us the hard-won wisdom of a man who has reflected on what he has learned. Please welcome Shane Fitzpatrick.
When I'm on a first date, alarm bells always go off if the woman says, "Let's play Nixon." This happened a few weeks ago when I was out with a tax attorney from one of the big midtown firms whom I met on OkCupid. I can understand why she wanted to play, because she was totally great at it. She looked scary with her shoulders hunched over, growling about the press and vowing revenge against the people on her enemies list. But as she started screaming about Jane Fonda and Joe Namath, I thought, did it even occur to her that maybe I wanted to be Nixon and she could be Kissinger? This set off major alarm bells for me. Because the last thing I need in my life is someone who's inconsiderate. If a woman tells me she hears voices in her head, I hear something in my head too. Namely, alarm bells. Last December, I was at Chili's with a realtor I met on LinkedIn. And out of nowhere, she tells me she receives commands from Xanatar, a giant silkworm who controls the universe. She said Xanatar tells her to do things like jab people with forks and set things on fire. And it was obvious she was telling the truth because she did both of these things in the course of the evening. That is, to my arm and my pants. Now, I've got nothing per se against a person who talks to a big insect, but in the 2 hours we were together, she never once asked me about the giant hermit crab who talks to me. Which I'm pretty sure is bigger and more powerful than her precious silkworm. Verdict: alarm bells. If a woman invites me to her place for dinner, I'll ask if she wants me to bring anything. I do this for 2 reasons. A, to be polite. B, to see if her answer sets off any bells of the alarm-like variety. One time I asked this question, and the woman emailed me back the following response. 1, hairbrush. 2, large contractor-style garbage bags. 3, shovel. 4, chainsaw. Whoa. Did I need to spell out that ring-a-ding-ding sound I started hearing was? Not only did I not bring those things, but I bailed on dinner and blocked her on Facebook. Maybe I'm too uptight, but I think a first date is a little early in a relationship to expect someone to bring such nice gifts. I've been out with so many women who've set off alarm bells, I could write a book about it. In fact, I'm seriously considering penning such a book called Alarm Bells. I'll sometimes bring up this book project when I'm on a first date just to see how the woman reacts. Ironically, sometimes the way a date responds to the idea of a book called Alarm Bells sets off those same bells themselves. For example, at Applebee's once, a human resources lady I met on MapQuest said she would never read a book like that. I was like, check please. I I don't think I could ever be with someone who doesn't like to read. Now, before you start thinking I'm too picky, full disclosure, I know I've set off my share of alarm bells too. Here's something about me that could be construed as a bell ringer. Instead of engaging in the small talk that always bogs down a first date, I like to kick off the evening by saying, "Hey, would you like to marry me?" You can practically see the alarm bells on some women's faces when I say this. But the question is going to come up at the end of a successful relationship, so why not bring it up at the beginning and save everyone's time? I've been around the block enough to know that if one half of a couple doesn't agree with the other half on the topic of marriage, there's going to be trouble in paradise. Oh, one last thing about alarm bells. When I tell people about them, they sometimes say I expect too much from a first date. But a first date gives you only an imperfect snapshot of who a woman really is. Her real self, her hopes and dreams, her fears and sorrows will all start to emerge like a beautiful mosaic. On the second date, I hope to have one someday.
We all know how stressful the process of college admissions can be these days. Seniors? Okay. So, senior Marley Painter will now come to offer her interpretation of a mother who has discovered a new solution to the problem of getting your child into college. I assume most of you have heard of homeschooling. Some of you perhaps were homeschooled. This is a mother who is going to experiment with home colleging. Marley Painter will give us an idea of what the Lumpkin Home College will be like as she declaims the admissions letter Mrs. Lumpkin has written to her son. Please welcome Marley Painter.
Dear Bradley G. Lumpkin, we are very pleased to inform you of your acceptance to Lumpkin Home College. With an applicant pool of approximately 1, this year's marked the most selective admissions process in Lumpkin's history. We recognize that there are many institutions of higher learning a candidate like you could choose. Although, as Daddy reminded you, the Atlas Air Conditioner Repair School did not offer us financial aid. And besides, you were waitlisted. Lumpkin College, founded last Tuesday night after your most recent thing with the police, is dedicated to instilling in Bradley Lumpkin an appreciation of staying out of jail. In addition to its mandatory work-study program, the college is known for its high faculty-student ratio, particularly if you count Grandma. The conveniently compact campus is situated just minutes from a nail salon, an auto upholstery shop, and the Feigenberg family home, where students who still are not on probation can take their junior year abroad. More great news. As a matriculating freshman, you have been assigned to live in the same dormitory as the faculty. You will be residing in the Lumpkin Unkempt Center, which you may recall as the room that overlooks the driveway, now known as the Quad, which already contains your stuff and Timmy. Downstairs, you'll find the cafeteria, where we make sure that your dining experience is about more than just leftovers. It's about the cleanup, too. New student, please take note. Lumpkin still does not have a liquor license. The cabinet in Marvin Feigenberg's study is reserved solely for visiting professors in need of refreshment. Does Lumpkin have academics? You bet. Among the classes, we're proud to offer the following. Archaeology 206 includes a field trip to Brad Lumpkin's bed, where we'll excavate for pizza crusts and coinage, as well as cell phones dating back to the early paleo iPhone era. Offered, summer session. Summer session starts today. A dialectic of mother-son relationships. Things ain't what they used to be. In this course, we'll explore the various forms of government, from anarchy to bradocracy. Is despotism really so terrible? You might be surprised at the answer. Prerequisite, apology workshop. Introduction to abnormal psychology. Why would someone bury his little brother under a snowdrift, especially when you know Timmy worships you? Is it normal to sell your parents' car on eBay without their knowledge? These are just some of the questions we'll analyze in this freshman tutorial. Meets once a week on Dr. Finkelstein's couch. Applied mathematics focuses on solving real-life problems, such as if Bradley claims he invited 10 friends to his party, but more than 200 youngsters show up, how much damage will result, both in terms of dollars and euros, since 2 of the girls were French exchange students. We'll also calculate whether the Lumpkins can afford to replace their roof with the funds they would have remitted to Mountain Dew University, had Bradley completed his application on time. Meet Saturday nights, 7 p.m. to midnight. The fundamentals of art appreciation, a survey course of early antiquities, especially the broken one in the living room. At Lumpkin, we recognize that education goes beyond intellectual discourse. Each weekend, we'll hop in the Explorer and head down to the Turnpike. There, the underclassman can fulfill his court-ordered phys ed requirements by picking up litter along exits 37 to 39. And it's not for nothing that our team mascots are the mighty fighting attorneys of Fortunato, Xian Shang, and Wadia. This year, we're hoping to trounce the New Jersey Court of Appeals. Go Lumpkin attorneys! Lumpkin Home College is not all fun and games, however. Aside from Yale, LHC is the only college in America where first-year students gather to wet mop grandma's floor every Thursday, which is the least you can do considering what you did to her credit rating. Other clubs and campus organizations include the Varsity Posture Squad and the Society for Writing Thank You Notes. Unfortunately, Amnesty International is no longer allowed on campus. Why choose Lumpkin Home College? Because, honey, you have no choice. Sincerely, Florence Lumpkin, Dean of Undergraduate Studies.
In our final humor piece, senior Angelica Buscemi takes us to the world of an international classic, Cervantes' story of Don Quixote, a rather misguided Spaniard and his sidekick, Sancho Panza. Angelica will offer us a look at a famous episode in which Don Quixote spies some new and formidable opponents. And although Sancho attempts to persuade Don Quixote to do otherwise, Don Quixote will not be turned aside from his mission to live out his life as a gallant knight in shining armor. Please welcome Angelica.
At this point, they came in sight of 30 or 40 windmills on a plain. And as soon as Don Quixote saw them, he said to his squire, "Fortune is arranging matters for us better than we could have shaped our desires ourselves. For look there, friend Sancho Panza, where 30 or more monstrous giants present themselves, all of whom I mean to engage in battle and slay, and with whose spoils we may begin to make our fortune. For this is righteous warfare, and it is God's good service to sweep so evil a breed from off the face of the earth." "What giants?" said Sancho. Those thou seest there, replied his master, with the long arms. Oh, and some have them nearly 2 leagues long. Look, your worship, said Sancho, what we see there are not giants, but windmills. And what seem to be their arms are the sails that, turned by the wind, make the millstone go. It is easy to see, replied Don Quixote, that thou art not used to this business of adventures. Those are giants. And if thou art afraid, then away with thee, out of this, and betake thyself to prayer, while I engage them in fierce and unequal combat. So saying, he gave the spur to his steed, heedless of the cries his squire Sancho sent after him, warning him that they were most certainly windmills, and not giants that he was going to attack. He, however, was so positive that they were giants, he neither heard the cries of Sancho, nor perceived, near as he was, what they were, but made at them, shouting, "Fly not, cowards and vile beings, for a single knight attacks you!" A slight breeze at this moment sprang up, and the great sails began to move, seeing which Don Quixote exclaimed, "Oh, though ye flourish more arms than the giant Briareus, ye have to reckon with me!" So saying, with lance at rest and covered by his buckler, he charged and fell upon the first mill that stood in front of him. But as he drove his lance point into the sail, the wind whirled it round with such force that it shivered the lance to pieces, sweeping horse and rider, who went rolling over on the plain in a sorry condition. Sancho hastened to their assistance as fast as his ass could carry him, but when he came up, found him unable to move. "Oh, God bless me," said Sancho. "Did I not tell your worship to mind what you were about? For they were only windmills." "Hush, friend Sancho," replied Don Quixote. "The fortunes of war, more than others, are liable to frequent fluctuations. And moreover, I think, and it is the truth, that that same sage, Friston, who made off with my study and books, has turned these giants into mills in order to rob me the glory of vanquishing them. Such is the enmity he bears. But in the end, his wicked arts will avail but little against my good sword." "God order it as he may," said Sancho, helping him to rise. They followed the road to Puerto La Pese, where there, said Don Quixote, they would not fail to find adventure in abundance and variety.
We're now ready for our second musical interlude. Iku Tsuchihiro and Ulysses Zhang will perform a double violin concerto by Bach. Please welcome them. category this evening is drama. Junior Vivian Jiang will begin this category by offering an interpretation of a young woman struggling with her desire to find significance in a difficult relationship. Like many others, the character Vivian will enact is desperate to feel needed, loved, and attractive. And this need has led her into a painful and potentially destructive situation. As we will see, the fear of being lonely and the desire to be loved can do one damage. Please welcome Vivian Jiang.
I don't want to get all Hallmark hard on you, but you're my best friend. We've been through so much together. You know me better than I've ever let anyone know me. You're the first person I've ever met who understands me, who thinks the way I do, who gets me. Am I crazy? Am I wrong? Because you're important to me. If you just aren't attracted to me, I could understand that. I know you can't choose who you want. You can't control those feelings. The heart wants what the heart wants. If we could choose, then I could stop wanting you. I know it doesn't work like that, so if you just don't like me that way, but you do. Don't you? You must. I mean, at least a little. You can't find me too repulsive. You're the one who kissed me. Did I do something wrong? I mean, was I not good to you? Was I too easy? Was I supposed to play hard to get? I don't know how to be coy and play games. No one ever explained the rules to me. All I know how to do is be honest. And you said that was something you loved about me. Is it? Are you ashamed? Is that why you're pretending like it didn't happen? That's it, isn't it? You're ashamed, right? I mean, who wouldn't be ashamed to be with me? I'm Dogface. You can kiss Dogface behind closed doors, but you can't introduce her to your friends. You can't bring her home to meet your mom. You said you're not ready. Is anyone ever ready for their life to change? How do you expect to learn anything? We'll make all kinds of stupid mistakes and feel like idiots. Welcome to the human condition. Trial and error. It's the only way to learn. No one's ever ready. You said you don't want to get serious, but how am I supposed to act casual about something this intense, this rare? You're the first person to see me. How can that not be a big deal? Look at me. How many chances am I going to have in life? I think I love you. I think you could have loved me. And if I'm crazy, then I'm crazy. And if I'm wrong, then okay, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, and you're just too much of a chicken to deal with the possibility of something real and rare and dangerous and life-altering, then I'm not even sure I would want to love someone so stupid. But now, I mean, I do feel like I've lost something. Not my innocence, my dogmatic crap. I've lost the walls I built to protect myself from feeling this. I lost my isolation. I let you in. I gave you the power to hurt me. See, I want to be a cat because most cats are very independent creatures. They can be domesticated, but for the most part, they don't really act like pets as much as they act like caged predators. They fend for themselves, and sometimes when they want you to give them a little affection, they crawl into your lap and they purr and they let you pet them and love them, and then after a little while, they get sick of you and they scratch you and they jump up and they run away. Cats are fierce. Cats get what they need from you, and then they just move on. I'm not a cat. I'm a dog. Dogs love you pretty much unconditionally. They are so loyal.
It defies all logic. They need you and they let you know that they need you. They need you to love them. They cry when you leave in the morning and they jump for joy when you come home at night. They always want your attention. They can't get enough of your love. I don't want to be a dog, but I am. I think I always will be.
In Antony and Cleopatra, Shakespeare dramatizes the doomed love of the Roman general Antony and the Egyptian queen Cleopatra, as Antony faces his nemesis, Octavius. Senior Nana Sakesi will present to us Cleopatra's hopeless passion for Antony as she faces the loss of Antony and the loss of her Egyptian lands to Octavius. Rather than face humiliation at the hands of the victorious Octavius, Cleopatra famously commits suicide by inducing a snake to poison her. Please welcome Nana Sa.
I dreamed of an Emperor Antony. Oh, such another sleep, that I might see but such another man. His legs bestrode the ocean, his reared arms crested the world, his voice was prodigy, as all the tunest fears, and that to friends. When he meant to quail and shake the orb, he was as rattling thunder. For his bounty, there's no winter, no autumn twas that brewed more by reaping. His delights were dolphin-like. They showed his back above the elements they lived in. In his livery walked crowns and crownets, realms and islands, where his plate struck from his pocket. Think you that it was, or might be, such a man as this I dreamt of? You lie, up to the hearings of the gods. But if there be, or ever were, one such, it's past the size of dreaming. Nature wants them, to vie for the strange forms of fancy, and yet to imagine, oh, Antony, when nature's peace gains fancy, condemning shadows bright. Sir, all the world, I cannot project my own cause to make it clear, but I do confess I have been laden with the like frailties which have often shamed our sense. O Caesar, how pomp is followed! What is mine is yours, and should we shift estates, what's yours is mine. The ingratitude of this Seleucus does even make me wild! Slave of no more trust than love that's hired. Than love that's hired. But I'll catch thine eyes, I warrant thee, though they had wings. Slave, soulless villain, dog, oh rally base. Oh Caesar, what a wounding shame this is, that thou here vouchsafing to visit me, by doing the honor of thy lordliness, that mine own servant should parcel the sons of my disgraces by addition of his own envy. Say, good Caesar, that I some lady trifles have reserved, moment toys, things of such dignity as we greet our modern friends with all. And say some nobler token I've kept apart for Livia and Octavia. Must I be unfolded with the one I have bred? Oh, the gods, smite me. Hast thou the pretty worm of Nilus there, that kills and pains not? Give me my robe, put on my crown. I have immortal longings in me, now no more. The juice of Idris' grape shall moist the slip. Yeah, Iris, quick! Methink I see Antony call. I see him rouse himself to praise my noble act. I hear him mock the good luck of Caesar, which the gods gave men to excuse the afterwrath. Oh, husband, I come. And now to that name my courage prove my title. I am a fire and air, my other elements are to give place in. So have you done. Come then, and take the last warmth of my lips. Farewell, farewell, noble Charlene. Have I the aspic in my lips? If thou in nature can so gently part, the stroke of death is a lover's pinch, which hurts but is desired. Dost thou lie still? If thus thou vanishest, then thus must tell the world is not worth me taking. Oh, this proves me base. If she first meet the curled Antony, he'll make demand of her and spend that kiss. 'Tis my heaven to have. Come thou, mortal wretch! With thy not intrinsicate of life at once untie, pull, venomous fool, be angry and dispatch. Couldst thou speak, that I might hear Antony call as some fallen seed, as sweet as balm, as soft as air, as gentle to me. Oh, Antony, I will take thee to
Senior Robert Sprachio will now offer an interpretation of a lonely man who has found a way out of his loneliness in a museum. Please welcome Robert Sprachio.
I'm so glad I found you. You're the only one I can talk to. Definitely the only girl I've ever talked to. But I feel so comfortable with you. No one listens to me. I talk, and they change the subject. It's not that I feel like I have something better to say. I don't know if I have much to say at all. I've never really had a chance to try. But then I found you, here in this museum, alone, with no one to talk to, like me, like each other, pushed back, in a corner, and forgotten. But we aren't alone anymore. The minute I saw you here, I knew you were special. There was something magical about your eyes. I know they aren't your actual eyes, but the eyes they painted you. Mystical eyes that gazed upon me and held me here. Did the artist capture your true eyes? If so, they're the most amazing ones I've ever seen. You're such a beautiful princess. Didn't your people believe that you were a goddess if you were royalty? What's it like to be worshipped? Not that I want to be. I imagine it has its downsides. Like Princess Diana. Don't be jealous. I never met the woman. But she was killed by the people who loved her too much. I guess it is possible to love something too much. Like Lenny and the rabbit, hugging and squeezing the life out of what you love so much. I hope your people didn't do that to you. Say, what does one do for a princess? I know a place where we could go. It's a meadow near a creek. The sound of water drowns out the world around you. You only hear the birds and the wind through the leaves. You watch the clouds and dream. Did you ever watch the clouds and dream them into something? I create the most amazing pictures in the clouds. I would love to show you how. I would teach you. Does it sound nice? Oh, what else would we do? Oh, well, we'd watch the sunset fires burn away the day, and hold hands as the colors dazzle us, and burn away the worries of today. Then, as the fire dies, the embers float above us, and turn into stars. The stars sparkling down on us like a crown. Worthy of a princess. We'd get closer until I was holding you and you'd fall asleep in my arms. But I couldn't sleep. I wouldn't want to miss any moment with you. That would be better than any dream. Would you like that? Me too. More than anything. That's my wish. See, it's important to love just enough. Just enough to know you are loved without hurting the object of your affection. But you died so young. It's not fair. No one should have to live such a short life. The Egyptians believed in immortality, or some such thing. You live on, remembered, but no one to talk to, never getting to say anything. I guess I was a mummy. Before I met you. There, but not being heard. I wish I could give you what you've given me. A voice. A chance to exist. A chance to be real. So much of life is fake. It would be wonderful to be real. To be real together. A real life for the two of us. I better go. What's that? A gift. You don't have to give me anything. Being with you is enough. No, I can't take your ring. I would if I could, but the museum. I know it's yours, but it's all right. I will take it. Really, I will. Watch. This one. It's beautiful. I will cherish this. I've never been given anything by a girl before. I will keep it with me always, so I can dream about it. Dream we were made for each other. I for you, and you saved for me. I love it. And I love you.
Our final drama piece is from the play Streetcar Named Desire. In this scene, junior Anna Bremler will interpret the confrontation between two sisters, Blanche and Stella. Blanche has lost her family's home and she is running from her past, so she has decided to move in with her sister Stella in Stella's small apartment in New Orleans. Blanche is a fading beauty, a possible alcoholic, and a psychological mess. But the reunion we will see between Blanche and her sister will show that Blanche is nevertheless a powerful character. Please welcome Junior and Abramma.
I've got to keep hold of myself. Stella! Oh, Stella, Stella! Now then, let me look at you. But don't you look at me, Stella. No, no, no. Not till later. Not till I've bathed and rested. And turn that overlight off. Turn that off. I won't be looked at in this merciless glare. Come back here now. Oh, my baby Stella. I thought you would never come back to this horrible place. What am I saying? I didn't mean to say that. I meant to be nice about it and say, oh, what a convenient location and such. Precious lamb, you haven't said a word to me. Now you talk. Open your pretty mouth and talk while I look around for some liquor. I know you must have some liquor on the place. Where could it be, I wonder? Ooh, I spy. But no Coke, honey, not with my nerves tonight. Where is it? Ah, just water, baby, to chase it. Now don't get worried. Your sister hasn't turned into a drunkard. She's just all shaken up and hot and tired and dirty. You sit down now and explain this place to me. What are you doing in a place like this? Oh, I'm not going to be hypocritical. I'm going to be honestly critical about it. Never, never, never in my worst dreams could I picture. Only Poe, only Mr. Edgar Allan Poe could do it justice. Out there, I suppose, is a ghoul-haunted woodland of wire. No, now seriously, putting joking aside, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you write me, honey? Why didn't you let me know that you had to live in these conditions? You're all I've got in the world, and you're not glad to see me? I'd forgotten how quiet you were. You haven't asked me how I happened to get away from school before the spring term ended. You thought I'd been fired. I was so exhausted by all that I'd been through. My nerves broke. So Mr. Graves is the high school superintendent, he suggested I take leave of absence. I couldn't put all those details into the wire. Ooh, this buzzes right through me and feels so good. You haven't said a word about my appearance. If you say I look fine, and God love you for a liar. Daylight never exposed so total a ruin. It's you've put on some weight. Yes, you're just as plump as a little partridge. And it's so becoming to you. Yes, it is, or I wouldn't say it. You just have to watch your own hips a little. Stand up. You hear me? I said stand up. You messy child, you spilled something on that pretty white lace collar. About your hair. You ought to have it cut in a feathered bob with your dainty features. I'm going to take just one little tiny nip more, sort of put a stopper on it, so to speak. Then put the bottle away so I won't be tempted. I want you to look at my figure. You know I haven't put on 1 ounce in 10 years, Stella? I weighed what I weighed the summer you left Bellerive. The summer Dad died, and you left us. I haven't asked you the things you probably thought I was going to ask, so I'll expect you to be understanding about what I have to tell you. Well, Stella, you're going to reproach me. I know that you're bound to reproach me, but before you do, take into consideration, you left. I stayed and struggled. You came to New Orleans and looked out for yourself. I stayed at Bellerive and tried to hold it together. I'm not meaning this in any reproachful way, but all the burden descended on my shoulders. You are the one that abandoned Bellerive, not I. I stayed and fought for it, bled for it, almost died for it. I knew you would, Stella. I knew you would take this attitude about it. You're a fine one to sit there accusing me of it. I took the blows in my face and my body. All those deaths, the long parade to the graveyard. Father, Mother, Margaret, that dreadful way, so big with it, it couldn't be put in a coffin, but had to be burned like rubbish. You just came home in time for the funeral, Stella. And the funerals are pretty compared to the deaths. Funerals are quiet, but deaths not always. Sometimes their breathing is hoarse, and sometimes it rattles, And sometimes they even cry out to you, "Don't let me go!" Even the old sometimes say, "Don't let me go," as if you were able to stop them. But funerals are quiet, with pretty flowers. And oh, what gorgeous boxes they pack them away in. Unless you were there at the bed when they cried out, "Hold me," you'd never suspect there was a struggle for breath and bleeding. You didn't dream, but I saw. And now you sit there telling me with your eyes that I let the place go? How in hell do you think all that sickness and dying was paid for? Death is expensive, Miss Stella. And old cousin Jesse's right after Margaret's. Why, the Grim Reaper had put up his tent on our doorstep. Stella, Belle Reve was his headquarters. Honey, that's how it slipped through my fingers. Which of them left us a fortune? Which of them left us a cent of insurance even? Only poor Jessie. 100 to pay for her coffin. That was all, Stella. And I, with my pitiful salary at the school, yes, accuse me. Sit there and stare at me thinking, I let the place go. I let the place go? Where were you?
The judges are now excused and will have approximately 15 minutes to reach their verdict. And we will now have our final musical performance. Song from Mozart's opera Le Nozze di Figaro, performed by Will Choi, accompanied by Mrs. Smith.
Non più andrai, farfallone amoroso, notte e giorno d'intorno girando, delle belle trovando riposo, Narcisette, madoncina d'amor. Delle belle trovando riposo, Narcisette, madoncina d'amor. Non mi avrai questi bei pennacchini, quel cappello reggello gailante, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante, quel vermiglio donnesco color, quel vermiglio donnesco color. Non mi avrai quei pennacchini, quel cappello, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante. Non più andrai, farfallone amoroso, notte e giorno d'intorno girando, quelle belle trovando riposo, Narcisette, madoncina d'amor. Quelle belle trovando riposo, Narcisette, madoncina d'amor. Fra guerrieri può far bacco, rammustacchi stretto sacco, schioppo in spalla, sciabra in fianco, collo dritto, muso franco, un gran casco, un gran trovante, molto d'or, poco contante, poco contante, poco contante. Ed invece del fandango una marcia per il fango, per montagna, per valloni, con le nevi e soglioni, al concerto di tromboni, di bombarde, di cannoni, che per palle in tutti i tuoni all'orecchio fa fischiare. Non vi avrai quei pennacchini, non vi avrai quella chioma, non vi avrai quel cappello, non vi avrai quell'aria farfallone amoroso, notte e giorno d'intorno girando, nelle belle trovando riposo, Narcisetto ad un cibo d'amore. Nelle belle trovando riposo, Narcisetto ad un cibo d'amore. Alla gloria militar, cherubino alla vittoria, alla gloria militar, alla gloria militar, alla gloria militar.
So we will now have two exhibition declamations. Available this evening were two of the three winners of last year's middle school declamation contest. A contest that I think many of you probably perhaps did not get to last year, but the middle school also does some very fine work in declamation. And this is considered a plug for this upcoming middle school declamation that will happen in the spring for grades 7 through 9. So, unfortunately, the third winner was not available this evening, but we are fortunate to have freshman Harrison Platt join us with a speech taken from Orwell's famous novel, Animal Farm. Please welcome Harrison Platt.
Now, comrades, what is the nature of this life of ours? Let us face it, our lives are miserable, laborious, and short. We are born, we are given just so much food as will keep the breath in our bodies, and the very instant our usefulness has come to an end, we are slaughtered with hideous cruelty. No animal in England knows the meaning of happiness or leisure after he is a year old. No animal in England is free. The life of an animal is misery and slavery. That is the plain truth. But is this simply part of the order of nature? Is it because this land of ours is so poor that it cannot afford a decent life to those who dwell upon it? No, comrades! 1,000 times no! The soil of England is fertile. Its climate is good. It is capable of affording food in abundance to an enormously greater number of animals than now inhabit it. Why then do we continue in this miserable condition? Because nearly the whole of the produce of our labor is stolen from us by human beings. There, comrades, is the answer to all of our problems. It can be summed up in a single word: man. Man is the only real enemy we have. Remove man from the scene, and the root cause of hunger and overwork are abolished forever. Our labor tills the soil, our dung fertilizes it, yet there is not one of us who owns more than his bare skin. You cows that I see before me, how many thousands of gallons of milk have you given during this last year? And what has happened to that milk? We should have been breeding up sturdy calves. Every drop of it has gone down the throat of our enemies. And you, Clover, where are the 4 foals you bore, who should have been the support and pleasure of your old age? Each of them was sold at a year old, and you will never see one of them again. In return for your 4 confinements and your labor in the fields, what have you ever had except your bare rations and a stall? Even the miserable lives we lead are not allowed to reach their natural span. I myself do not grumble, for I am one of the lucky ones. I am 12 years old and have had over 400 children. Such is the natural life of a pig. But no animal can escape the cruel knife in the end. You young porkers who are sitting in front of me, each of you will scream your lives out at the block within a year. To that horror, we must all come. Cows, pigs, hens, sheep, everyone. Even the horses and dogs have a know but our fate. You, boxer. The very day those great muscles of yours lose their power, Jones will sell you to the knacker, who will cut your throat and boil you down for the foxhounds. As for the dogs, when they grow old and toothless, Jones ties a brick round their neck and drowns them in the nearest pond. Is it not crystal clear then, comrades, that all the evils of this life of ours spring from the tyranny of human beings? Only get rid of man, and the produce of our labor would become our own. Almost overnight, we would become rich and free. What then must we do? Why, work night and day, body and soul, for the overthrow of the human race. That is my message to you, comrades. Rebellion. I do not know when this rebellion will come. It could be in a week or in 100 years. But I know, as surely as I see the straw beneath my feet, that sooner or later, justice will be done. Fix your eyes on that, comrades, for the short remainder of your lives. And above all, pass this message of mine to those who come after you, so that future generations shall carry on the struggle until it is victorious. And remember, your resolution must never falter. No argument must lead you astray. Never listen when they tell you that man and the animals have a common interest, that the prosperity of one is the prosperity of the other. It is all lies. Man serves the interest of no creature but himself. And among us animals, let there be perfect unity, perfect comradeship in the struggle.
Finally, the winner of last year's humor category for the middle school contest, freshman Eliana Johnson, will offer us a glimpse of a character with an unusual obsession, an obsession with antiques and antique stores. She will show us a character who not only loves antique stores, but also loves to invent stories about people who once owned the antiques. Please welcome Eliana Johnson.
On weekends, my husband and I enjoy browsing in antique stores. We get up early and drive out into the country, 2-3 hours away, our eyes peeled for quaint and sleepy storefronts sporting that magical word, antiques. Cracked wooden doorknobs, rusted ice tongs, stained handkerchiefs, feet old, no longer of any use, and, fingers crossed, damaged. We love it. How to describe the sensation of walking into an antique store? That first moment, so pregnant with possibility, when you exchange the tiresome sunlight and the fresh air of the street outside for the musky, dark, crowded aisles where pleasure awaits. There's the initial blindness, of course, and the stumble over the uneven floorboards, and perhaps a sharp howl of pain as the hand you put out to steady yourself ended up
in a basket of nails. But then your eyes adjust, and you see the riches laid out before you. The headless dolls, the nibless pens, the shadeless lamps, and the zithers. Dear Lord, the zithers! By then, my husband has already found the iron tractor seats and is pawing eagerly through them for new additions to his collection. But I like to pick up the first thing I see and just reflect on its intrinsic beauty and its place in the long parade of American history. On this day, it's a coffee cup with no handle and a logo reading Frank's Auto Service. Frank's Auto Service. Who was Frank? Was that his first name or his last name? Or perhaps his name was Franks. Maybe he was known as Jimmy Franks, or Ted Franks, or good old Charlie Franks. Well liked? Sure, but probably incompetent. And when he took the delivery of the truckload of promotional coffee cups that he thought would save his failing garage, upon examining them, discovered that an apostrophe had been added, and Frank's Auto Service had become Frank's Auto Service. No doubt, he hurled the cup against the wall of a shop in frustration, snapping off the handle. Or it hit a customer, watching in horror as it broke into against her skull. Ouch. And who did he hit? Maybe it was Mrs. Tucker. She had done nothing to deserve such an assault. And her husband, Mr. Tucker. You see, he loved her, which is why when he noticed the pinging in her car, he had suggested she get it looked at. She had ignored his instructions to bring the car to the town's most reliable garage, which was also the busiest, going instead to Charlie Frank's because she hated waiting in lines. You could say that that Mrs. Tucker would have never been in that path of that fateful cup. She'd only listened to her husband. Maybe when he came home that night to find her nursing a lump on her forehead, he was tempted to say so. But when she fell, face down, in her oatmeal the next morning, dead of a freak, intracerebral hematoma, did it really matter that the whole thing was, in a sense, her own fault? 2 weeks later, they hanged poor Charlie Franks. Between the Franks family and the Tucker family, a total of 14 children had lost a parent. And though Mr. Tucker and Mrs. Franks might have fallen in love, married, and made their families whole again, they didn't. Of course, it's quite possible that Charlie's cups were printed correctly, or printed incorrectly, but Charlie never noticed. We can only speculate. One thing's for certain, however, this cup has no handle. And there's a brown stain at the bottom that would be unappetizing to see after drinking your coffee. I do not want this cup. I looked for my husband to tell him so, but he had left the shop with his prized tractor seat wrapped in butcher paper and is in the car, leaning assertively on the horn.
While we conclude, I wish to thank my colleagues in the English department, Alicia Brumler, Jean Lindsay, Brad Brumler, Bruce Jeffrey, Jacob Morley, Andrew Barber, and Magic Hicks, who have coached and evaluated these declaimers in class and helped me narrow this down to semifinalists, and then finalists that you've seen this evening. I'm also grateful this evening for the advice and assistance of Francis Pastel and Jane Taylor, who did much work behind the scenes to help bring this evening out for us. I also would like to thank Jamie and Dustin Ramirez for their work with the music department. And I need to give special thanks to Mrs. Lindsay, who once again has been invaluable to me, helping to coach our declamation students. So now it is time to congratulate our declaimers and discover the winners. So if I could have our declaimers, if you would all come on stage in order of speaking. So we'll have the orders over here on the far side. Go ahead and join me here on stage. And if I could have Mr. Crane, if you would come forward with the certificates, we will begin by congratulating our declaimers with certificates of participation tonight. Great. All right. So to begin, so in oratory, Miranda Herrick. Michelle Vassell. And Elise Mitchell. And Jan Scott. In humor, Chelsea Kubrick-Ford. Shane Fitzpatrick. Marley Painter. Angelica Buscemi. And in drama, Vivian Jiang. Nana Kessi. Robert Spraccio. Anna Brumler. Harrison had to leave early. We'll get his to him. And our other exhibitionist, Eliana Johnson. And now for the winners. First, in oratory, I should also announce that we will need the stage held for some photos right after I announce the winners. So please resist your temptation to rush the stage. We'll do some photos, and then you can come down and congratulate these declaimers. A fine job to them all this evening. Also, declaimers and musicians, be sure to find me before you leave the building to get your gift certificate. Okay? Please don't forget. All right, so the winner in oratory, I'm sure this is a difficult decision. In all three categories, the winner in oratory is Rochelle Vassell. This evening is Shane Fitzpatrick. And the winner in drama, Nana Kessi. very appreciative and great audience. Thank you for supporting these Stony Brook students. Thank you for supporting your own Stony Brook students, those of your parents here. So thank you. That is, go ahead and Tech, we can bring the house lights up. I want to thank the judges for being with us. Thank you all for coming. Boarders, you are free to return to the dorms. Thank you very much.